Hello, my name is Jimmy Vegas and welcome to this, the seventh in a series of video tutorials on how to create a mobile game in Unity 5. So this episode we're going to carry on from where we left off last episode where we were creating a score. So what I want to do in the first part of this episode is use this star, and when we have our rocket fly into it we collect, let's say, 500 points, 200 points, 1,000 points, whatever you want. So I'm going to start by clicking on the star itself. And here, first thing we're going to need to do is just keep everything in order. Is here where it says tag, click on untagged, and then add tag down the bottom. Presumably it should say for you, this list is empty. Click on the plus, and you'll have tag 0, and I'm just going to put something simple like stars. So then every star should be tagged as stars. It just keeps things a little bit easier in the long run. So the next thing we're going to need to do is on the star 001 itself, click on is trigger. Now the reason we're clicking on is trigger for that is because we want this to be a trigger for a script when our rocket flies into it. And as for star 001, which is the child object of star 001, just untick box collider there. The reason we untick box collider is because when our rocket is flying at the star, as there is a box collider and our rocket will collide with it, it will stop in midair, theoretically. It won't be able to go through it. And we want our rocket to go through the entire star to collect it. So once you've done them few things, you've set your tag as stars. Don't worry about going to this one, setting this one as stars on the tag, because the parent, the main object, is set as stars anyway. And make sure you've got is trigger ticked just there. Now, before we start writing a script, what I'm going to do is I'm going to right click down here on assets, create, folder. I'm going to call this audio. So before we write our script, I want to bring in an audio sound for collecting our star so as we don't disrupt our script halfway through to head back to Unity. So in this folder, you just need to drag and drop this star audio file. Now you can head over to our website, link is in the description below. You can download that audio by going to the downloads and assets section, going to the Plum series, and then going to episode 7. Just click on download and there you go. It's yours, import it into Unity, and there we go. So the next thing we're going to need to do is we're going to need to bring this audio into the scene. So on main camera, you need to right click, create empty, and let's rename this something simple, what we have already. So audio objects, and then right click on that one and create empty again. So we create another child object, and we're going to call this one, what should we call this? We'll call it star audio, and then drag and drop star audio onto that object there. Now you may be wondering why we've done it on the main camera. The reason being is what you see on the screen and what you hear from your speakers on the screen is all directly from the main camera. So if you have an audio object which is miles and miles away over here, you wouldn't hear it because it's nowhere near this particular object, which is the camera. So make sure you're in star audio, and over here you've got play on awake. By default, I think that should be ticked. Make sure that is unticked because you don't need that to be on. You only want this sound to activate when we say so in our script. So once we've imported our sound and it's on the correct object, we then need to write a script. So head into your scripts, right click, create script, and I'm just going to call this, what can we call this one? Let's just have star pickup. Hit enter on it or double click, whichever, and as always opens up in Mono Behavior or Visual Studio. Again, as I always say, it makes no difference. Code still works the same. So this script is going to comprise of one function and two variables. It's not too complicated, but I'll explain line by line as we go along. So the first variable I'm going to call star score. That's going to be an integer, but you can have it as a float if you want. I can't remember if I've explained this before in this series. An integer would be the whole number. So int is a whole number. Float is a decimal number. So if you have 10.685, that will be a float. If you have 10, that will be an integer. So I'm going to make this variable equal to 500. So if you want your star to be equal to 500 points, you put 500 there. If you want it to be equal to just 100, you put 100 there. Same with 1000. So any score you want your star to be, you put as this number, which is in orange. Then a semicolon. Next thing we need is the star sound itself. So var star sound, and that is going to be audio source. Oops, audio source. So remember, that's a capital A, capital S. If it turns blue, it's right. Now, the reason we've put star sound as an audio source and not a game object, even though we will be using a game object, is because when you use the audio source here, it can easily reference the fact that it has an audio source attached to the object, so it can play it. So the function we're going to be using is going to be Ontriggerenter. So function on trigger enter, then open close bracket, open curly bracket. Now the function Ontriggerenter basically means that whichever object it's attached to is going to be the trigger. And when an object enters this trigger, then the function is performed. So, for example, this script will go on our star, and when our rocket flies through our star, this Ontriggerenter function will occur. So the first thing we'll want to do is between these two brackets, we're going to put something which I have as pretty standard whenever I use this function in any tutorial, because having it uniform and having it the same as everything else builds a real sense of constant to your scripting. So if you try not to differentiate too much. So we're going to do col and collider. Now notice I've done col as lowercase c and collider as an uppercase c. So in the function itself, what we want to do first is play the star sound. So star sound dot play. Open close bracket, semicolon. Nothing fancy about that whatsoever. As long as the audio source is attached to the script, then that star sound will play no problems. Next, what we want to do is we want to reference our scoring system, which, if you remember, is this one here. And here we have a static variable called the score. And within the script we wrote last episode, it increments 5 each time. So whenever we hit a star, we want to increase the score by 500. So we can do that really easily by going score, oops, I've got a line down there, sorry. Scoring system dot the score plus equals, and then we type in star score, semicolon. So what this line is doing is it's finding the variable called the score, which is in scoring system, and it is adding whatever star score is worth to its value. That's why we have the plus equals. So it's adding to its current value this here, which is 500. Makes things quite easy. We'll be doing that quite a lot, to be honest, during creating this game, referencing this scoring system, because there's different things you can do, and it's always likely to be plus equals. So the last thing we need to do in this particular script is we just need to transform the position of the star off screen. So we can do this dot transform. And the reason I put this, by the way, is because when you put this, it can easily reference whatever object this script is attached to. And then transform dot position. And we want the position to be in a 3D environment, but we want it to be way off screen where we're never ever likely to see. So that can be 1,000 pixels above where we are right now. So we need to do position equals vector 3, open bracket, and let's do 0. Dear me. So let's do 0, 1,000, 0. Close bracket, semicolon, and then close curly bracket and save. So that line, in this particular case, this dot transform dot position equals vector 3, 0, 1000, 0, is it's placing whatever object this script is attached to at the position in our world, which is 0 by 1000 by 0 in the x, y, and z axis. So we put it at position x0, y 1000, z, or z 0. So basically it will end up miles high where you'll never see. So back into Unity, and on star 001, you need to drag this star pickup script we've just written straight onto there. And down here you'll see star score, which is already set as 500, and star sound, which says non-audio source. So you just need to drag and drop star audio over here. And I'm going to save my game now. And what we're going to do is we are going to test this out. What I think I might do first is I noticed our rocket is a bit flat. So I think, to be honest, I may increase its size. Let's increase on the Y. Actually, should we go? Let's go in, and I'm going to increase this to 1.5, 1.6. Okay, that looks a little bit better. I'm happy with that. I might make it a little bit longer too. Maybe 3. Okay, that's fine. I did also notice between this episode and last episode, the rocket is a bit too far to the left. So I may pull it forward. So let's just play this now and just make sure our star works. There we go. So hopefully you should now have the ding sound, nice and easy, and the star disappears and your score would be increased. Let's see. So I'm going to bring the rocket just ahead slightly, because the next thing we're going to do, you'll see why I've brought it forward on screen a bit. Let's try a little bit more. I think it's all due to the camera, isn't it? So I'm just going to quickly edit the camera script, because what I intend to do next is I want to bring the rocket with some fire so as it looks a little bit more like a rocket. So let's see, it's on camera script. So I just need to increase this a little bit. So I'm going to put this as 25. Save, and hopefully, I think I've got to go the other way, haven't I? Let's quickly check. Yes. So not 25. I want that to be, let's have as 12. Save. You've probably already got this sorted, but I haven't. So just to quickly check that my rocket is in a decent place. Okay, that's fine. So as I say, next thing we're going to do is we're going to create some fire that comes out the back of our rocket. Nice and easy. I'm not going to go into too much detail about how we're going to do it, but we're going to be using a particle system again, like we did with our star. But to do that, firstly, we need to import a fire texture. So again, you can import this fire 001 straight into Unity into your textures folder. And as I said with the Star Audio or even the script, you can head over to the website, download an asset section, and download everything from there. So on the rocket, right click, and you want to go to Particle System. And you should see all them white lines going the wrong way. So let's modify this to make it look a little bit more like fire. So I'm going to rotate on the y-axis by 180 degrees, so the fire goes the right way. I'm going to change it to an orange color. It's kind of an orange fiery color. Okay, yep, that looks okay for now. What we'll do is we'll put it a rate of, let's see. Let's go down the list and see what we can go with here. Start lifetime, we'll probably keep that as 5. Start size, yeah. Emission, let's see, I think this needs increasing, so let's put that as 50 so as we get more particles out there. Let's go on to shape now. So we need to make this more of a fire shape. So I'm going to keep it as cone. I'm going to put the angle as 0. And let's put the radius, it's got to be pretty low. So I'm going to have 0.1. May increase that. We'll just see how it goes for now. The next thing we'll need to do to make it look a little bit more like fire is we want to go to size over lifetime. So tick that option and then click on size over lifetime. You'll see a grey box just here. Click on it and down here you'll see a red line. If you don't get this down here, it may just look like this for you. You just need to drag up this little bit here so you get this. So I'm going to drag this right dot all the way down over here, about there, I think. And as you can see, if we look at our screen now, there looks very little fire. So we need to drag out the particle system towards the back of our rocket to about there. So it looks a little bit more like how fire would. Next thing, we need to drag and drop the fire onto the particle system. So drag and drop that texture straight on there, and it will start looking a bit weird now. If we zoom in, you'll be able to see the texture hasn't applied properly. Now what we need to do on that is down the bottom, you'll see shader. You need to click on there, and I think by default set on particles. You need to go on particles and go on additive. And now it'll look a little bit more like how fire actually should. So you can play around with these settings too much. I've only gone into basics of these settings. For example, you could change the radius to 0.5 and you could change the rate to 100. You can change the the size over lifetime, so you can have a longer fire or you can have it really short. So the more to the right it is, the longer your fire, the more to the left it is, the shorter. So just to show you what this looks like when we play, I'm going to press play now. And you can see the fire coming out. So that doesn't look too bad. And as I say, you can play around. Let's try and changing the angle on the cone to 10. So you can see that kind of spreads it outward. That's why I like to keep it as 1. It kind of keeps it in a straight line. The more you change your rate, the more fire will come out. However, you have to be careful of mixing this with your max particles. So if you only have a max particles of 1000 and your duration is 5 seconds, then you need to take into account them two numbers. So for your rate of 1000, you would need to times that, your duration, by max particles of 1000. So that will need to be 5 1000 for it to be constant. So to give you another example, your duration is 5 seconds. Your rate is, let's say, 200. Your max particles has to be at least the duration times the rate. So if you had, for example, 800 max particles, your fire would be a little bit intermittent there, as you can see. So it runs for about 4 seconds and then stops. However, your max particles at 1000, having a rate of 200, duration of 5, works just fine. So I'm going to leave that tutorial there for now. I'm going to leave you to play around with your fire. You've got the tools to do so. Play around with these settings here. Don't worry about messing around with them too much because, well, it's your game really. I'm just showing you the mechanics of how to do things. There's plenty of different ways you can learn how to do fire, different things you can play with. So next tutorial, I'm going to look at colliders for this planet, because we'll finally deal with this one. We'll probably add some more objects in there, possibly look at a death screen, and we'll also add in some music. If you've played the little Keep Flying game that we have on the JV Game Studio website, we're probably going to use the same music from that. But as you can see, it's now starting to come together like it does actually play on that little game, Keep Flying. So until the next episode, thank you very much for watching.